Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. We are here once again at the Brewery at orangecountyhops in Walden, New York.
Thumbs up.
Mike Antonelli here once again for some Pink Floyd today. So I probably get asked for Pink Floyd content more often than any other band on this channel. Not really a surprise.
So put the pressure on me right away.
Pressure's on me too, right? That's like
Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Legend.
Legends. Popular.
Legends.
Yeah. So Mike and I, the last couple of weeks, we kind of decided we were going to do this. And so we have plenty of time to put our lists together. And like always, I have not seen Mike's list. He has not seen mine. We'll do some honorable mentions at the end. And I know Mike's got some commentary he wants to throw in there on some of these songs or albums or what have you. So as always, Mike's going to kick us off with his number 10. We'll ping pong back and forth through our top 10s, and then we'll go over some honorable mentions and then recap the top 10s again. So, Mike, what do you got for us at number 10 from the mighty Pink Floyd?
Well, first of all, I have to back up just a minute, if it's okay.
Okay.
So I want to explain how I came up with these choices and in the order that I did. It was kind of a difficult assignment. There's lots of great Pink Floyd, but in my mind, you have to understand what the band Pink Floyd really represented. And to me, it was a psychedelic rock band. When I grew up in the 70s with Pink Floyd as one of my influential bands that influenced my musical taste as I was growing up. And to be honest with you, the first album that really hit me and stayed with me as my number one album all time was The Dark Side of the Moon.
Probably for most people.
For most people. And that was my first introduction to the Floyd. And, and then, of course, the less critically acclaimed Wish You Were Here, to me, was a huge success. I mean, I just fell in love with that for certain reasons that I'm going to explain later on. And was not a fan favorite in the beginning, was not critically acclaimed as a great album, but as
all these years later, hell yeah.
as time passes, the brilliance of that album is recognized as, unfortunately, a lot of things that are ahead of their time don't get the acclaim that they deserve until much later.
Great.
Yep. So I want to just throw a couple names out there for your listeners and just to tell you how I'm going to approach this. I'm going to approach this assignment that you gave me, rating Pink Floyd. So let's talk about songwriter teams. Okay, some of the greats from back in the day. American musicals, Broadway, so forth, jazz writers, pop writers. How about Rodgers and Hammerstein? What would one be without the other?
True.
Right?
Yep.
How about Bernie Taupin and Elton John?
Absolutely.
Without the lyricist, the music doesn't work on its own, and they're both great in their own right, right? Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, popular Broadway composers. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, another team, outstanding, right? So
Lennon and McCartney.
Here you go. The list goes on and on and on, and you're going to have your people here that are listening and are Pink Floyd fans of the band Pink Floyd. Some of them are going to really love Roger Waters in his melancholy way, and some are going to really love David Gilmour. I'm sorry, and his musicianship and the way he does, the way he put things together. So I'm going to approach it from that perspective, and I hope that's how you understand how I arrived at these picks. I don't want to shortchange the contributions of Richard Wright,
correct,
who in the period that I'm talking about had really a major influence on the the musical direction of the band. Came up with things that were different from the really early Pink Floyd that he was a part of, and certainly when he left, you could notice the difference as well. All right, so sorry for the long introduction, but
that's okay.
This is Pink Floyd.
Yes. So
known for the long introductions.
Yeah, that is true.
All right.
That is true.
There you go. So I get 1 point for me. All right. My least favorite album of all the albums I picked from is The Wall, for no particular reason, just because I had so many other choices. So number 10 for me is more or less an honorable mention on my list, and it's Another Brick in the Wall, just because...
Part 2, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, the one where they have the choir and the kids singing and all that.
That's the best one. Yeah.
And that to me is a way to get your philosophy across in a way that people really dig it, because you're using... Anytime you use a choir of children, you put a stake in my heart. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
it's well done. Whether you agree that it's overplayed or not,
yeah,
a well done song.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant concept at the time. So that's my number 10. Another Brick in the Wall, and it kind of showcases the lyrical genius and also some really cool musical tricks that were not used commercially in that time period when that was first recorded.
Yeah, I think Gilmore's kind
The
of
Children's
funky, bluesy guitar solo in that tune is pretty cool. I think the guitar licks are really cool. There's a lot of different. I mean, and people have heard me say this before on the show. I'm not the biggest fan of The Wall. I like parts of The Wall a lot. There's other parts that just don't do it for me. But I think that Gilmore really, really came to play on that album. I know the album is mostly driven by the songs of Roger Waters, and that whole kind of concept story is his. But I think Gilmore is just absolutely fantastic on that album, and we'll touch on that more later. But before I divulge my number 10, I just want to let everybody know, because I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to just be in uproar about it, but they shouldn't be surprised. There is not going to be any songs from the final cut in my top 10. I just thought I'd throw that out there now. And I know a lot of you seem to think that is the Pink Floyd's greatest album. It's a work of genius. I don't agree. While there are a couple tracks I kind of like, for the most part, I really don't like the final cut. I know Mike's got other opinions on that. We'll get to that a little bit later. So without further ado, my number 10, from The Dark Side of the Moon, the lovely Breathe. I mean, it's just kind of like this oozing, trippy, spacey, kind of mellow, proggy gem on the album, and there's a lot of great tracks on Dark Side of the Moon, and a lot of them kind of like lead into each other, so it's almost hard to dissect anything from that album, save for like maybe Money and Time, but and Breathe you could say it too. But I just always really dug Breathe a lot, so I just had to throw that in there somewhere. So you're number 9.
that was your number 9.
Yeah, so that was my number 10. Yeah.
Oh, you're number 10.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
so I'll go next with number 9. I agree with you on Breathe, and I think there's more I can say about that in my later picks, because that was part of my upper list, actually. So number 9, I'm going to go with from Wish You Were Here. I'm going to go on with Shine On, You Crazy Diamond, and not only parts 1 through 5, but the rest of it. I include the whole. You
have to make it as one.
Even
right?
with Breathe, they have Breathe, and they have the reprise of Breathe at the end of Time. They bring that back in Dark Side of the Moon. So yes, Crazy Diamond. They hired the sax player for Dark Side of the Moon named Dick Parry, and of course my history with the saxophone.
Yep.
He did such a great job of a really nice, beautiful rock vibe with this saxophone, which is traditionally a jazz. He's not a jazz guy who goes and plays rock, and tries to put jazz licks in a rock song. No, he really fit that style that he was playing to, I thought, beautifully in both those albums, Dark Side of the Moon and on Shine On. And so he did some really great sax work. In fact, most people probably don't even realize this unless you're a saxophonist or a woodwind guy, but he started the solo on part 5 or part 4, whatever it was. I don't know. They kind of bleed into each other. Yeah. But he starts his saxophone solo on Shine On, You Crazy Diamond on a Barry sax, and then as they change gears and they up the tempo and they kind of move to a different plane of emotion, now he's on the tenor sax.
Wow.
So that was all done in the studio. But as the emotion picked up, and he started out with that kind of thing, and then he brings it to a different place, he changes horns. So that had to be done on separate tracks on a different thing where they had to cut. And he.
So I wonder how they tackled that when they played it live. But it's
I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but he actually one starts out in the bari sax and ends up on a tenor. So I thought that was really cool, a great piece of engineering, and.
I dig that.
Shine on.
Tune. I'll call them tunes
Shine
because
on.
I always put them all together too, as we'll cover in a minute. But my number 9, I'm going to go to the metal album because there's 2 tracks on the metal album I absolutely love, and I'm going to go for One of These Days coming in at number 9. Just such a great kind of throbbing, evil kind of tune. There's really no lyrics to it. It's mostly instrumental except for the "One of These Days," thing that they throw in there. But really, really cool tune. And I remember back when I was in college in SUNY New Paltz in the early mid '80s. I remember I lived with a couple guys who were really into Pink Floyd, and I was really just a metal guy at the time. And they would throw on that album, that song, late at night after we had been kind of hanging around doing things. And I remember being like, this shit's pretty cool, because I never really listened to Floyd before, Yeah. I mean, I'd heard them obviously, but I never really seriously listened to Floyd because I was more of a hard rock and metal guy, and that's kind of when I first got really, really turned on to Pink Floyd, and I was kind of like, and sometimes you got to be in the right frame of mind to listen to certain music, right?
Yeah, well, listen, if you have a set of headphones and you listen from track to the end on the album, and just as we used to in those days, pick up the needle and flip it over, and then play the rest of it. You're really in a state of constant discovery from the time you drop the needle until the end when it's going, and then it's only 3 of those, and then you flip it over because you want to hear what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to waste any time.
Yeah, and I mean, that was, my experience with the Floyd is best listened to with the headphones because you can hear all the subtleties and
there were a lot
of great engineering. They had Alan Parsons and some really great engineers who worked with a lot of other British acts before them or simultaneously, with the Beatles and so forth, and a lot of experimental things with tape loops and synthesizer oscillators and all kinds of electronic ingenuities, I would say, at the time, which were the first, that those things were incorporated in an LP, and also as a young kid, to me, those were the first concept albums that I ever heard, where they took a storyline, and again, this to me is one of the greatest things about Pink Floyd, is that you listen to the story develop. When you're reading a great novel, you know how you get through the first 20 pages and you're kind of getting to know the story, and then all of a sudden, page 30, well, now you're getting interested because you're getting introduced to the characters, the main plot, and it develops, and then you got all these twists and turns, and by the time you get to page 200, you're so engrossed in this thing, you can't put it down.
No, you can't.
Right? And so, for all the people who say, well, their intros are too long, they don't get to the point, well, then go listen to pop records that are over in 3 minutes, if that's what you're into.
That's not what Pink Floyd is all about. They've never been about that,
Pink Floyd lasts more than 3 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
That's a good concept, right?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. That's what they were all about. I mean, that was in their DNA, right?
Right. So, I mean,
not that they didn't write some 3-minute songs.
No, they do, because everybody needs a welcome to the machine. You need some money generators too there, and I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
but never mind.
All right, you're up number 8.
I'm up number 8.
Yep.
So also from the metal album, I picked the song "Echoes," and I think some of the greatest lyrical writing that I ever heard came from that, and maybe set the stage for Roger Waters in the future to come up with these really catchy, philosophical, introspective reckonings. And so here's a line from there. Those of you No, I'm just going to repeat it. Strangers passing in the street, by chance 2 separate glances meet, and I am you, and what you see is me. And do I take you by the hand and lead you through the land, and help me understand the best I can? Right? So to me, lines like that and stories like that, that is the essence of the Floyd, compounded with Gilmour and Wright's musical genius to make those lyrics kind of pop out of the scene, come alive. You know, the way I just read it there doesn't make any sense to most people, but when you hear it delivered with the musical background, all right, it works. I just told you my whole... Did that take more than 3 minutes? My whole story of the Floyd. I'm done.
That's it. We can go. Bye. Thanks, everybody. No, I totally agree with you.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. All right.
I did it in 4 minutes. All right.
You did a chore that Floyd would have done.
Yeah.
For me, and I'm going to talk about Echoes a little bit more in a little bit, obviously. But for me, that album, specifically One of These Days in Echoes, was the beginning of Pink Floyd really becoming Pink Floyd, because I think the seeds of Dark Side and Wish You Were Here, and especially Animals, I think kind of were planted specifically on that Echoes tune. Mm-hmm. I think that was when, what we later came to know as Pink Floyd in the 70s, that was already happening.
And that was
there.
1971, right?
Yeah,
and then Dark Side of the Moon followed, and then Wish You Were Here was after that.
Yeah, let me just...
I think so.
I think you're all right. Yeah, because they had Obscured by Clouds. Yeah, I think it was after Obscured by Clouds and then Dark Side. Yeah, it was Obscured by Clouds, Metal, then Dark Side of the Moon. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Or Obscured by I think that was before. That was before Metal. I'm pretty sure. So, where were we? Okay, my number 8. My number 8 was your number 9, I believe. Welcome to the Machine. Oh no, that wasn't. No, I'm sorry. You mentioned it, but yeah. No, my next one was your number 9. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself
That's okay.
here. Welcome to the Machine from Wish You Were Here is my number 8. That's another one of those kind of, and I really dig the vocals on that tune, because they're just kind of like spooky and just like ethereal sort of, and it's just got that whole tune just has this kind of like ambiance.
I wonder how much influence, like with all that synthesizer work that Alan Parsons had to do with that particular tune, because I think he was one of the producers on that, wasn't he?
Or the engineer. Did he do? I know he did Dark Side of the Moon. Did he do Wish You Were Here also? He might have.
I'm not sure.
But you know what? Even if he didn't,
Abbey Road Studios, I think it was.
Even if he didn't, the fact that all the work they did with him on the Dark Side of the Moon, that had to have carried over, like that influence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you know how he came out with that around that a little bit later, that he came out with the iRobot thing,
which is a great album.
Which is all these like sequence synthesizer things and stuff.
Such a great
and
album.
to me,
even the Tales of
Welcome
Mystery
to
and
the Machine.
Now. Yeah.
When I was first listening to that, now don't forget, it's just a few years after we put a man on the moon. And as a young kid, thinking about that Apollo 11, all that stuff, and that's a 50-year anniversary. When I was listening to this as a teenager, it kind of brought me back to that time when I was fascinated that, hey, we just put a man on the moon and a spaceship. So Welcome to the Machine, for me, even though it's not about that, all that...
It's about futuristic stuff.
Yeah, the sound effects in there reminded me of, okay, we're on the launch pad, we're in the rocket here, we're going up to space, and all this...
Yeah.
All those sound effects and the stuff that went on there, in my mind, as a young kid, that affected me and stayed with me for the rest of my life. Yeah. I love that tune.
Well, you remember, we also lived through, all the science fiction stuff, which was really starting to happen the decade before that, right?
Right.
So that was all still pretty fresh. 2001, The Space Odyssey, all that stuff was fairly, all that was happening right around that time. So this music kind of like fit right in with all that stuff. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
All right, what do you got for number 7, Mike?
Okay, so number 7. Time from Dark Side of the Moon and Breathe Reprise, which
1-2 punch.
Yeah, to me, again, brilliant, brilliant work by Roger Waters, and those songs, just no matter where you are, if you listen to them or what stage in life you're in, I'm, pushing 60 over here. Sorry about giving that information up, honey. But, you look back and 10 years have passed, and no one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. Those kind of lyrics, given in that setting of that musical setting that was happening with the band right there, and all the clock sequences going off, the alarm clocks in the beginning, which was all done with actual recordings, tape loops of recordings of different alarm clocks that they have gathered from all over the place, and you put that whole thing together, it has such a great meaning that's timeless.
Yeah.
So, classic. I mean, this is like the freaking Wizard of Oz to me. The song Time. It's timeless. It's like Coltrane's Giant Steps. We don't know where it came from, and we'll never get to another point where I think it'll be something that more inventive. So for that reason alone, I really dig that. The whole philosophical message about it, no matter if you're...
Female vocals on it.
If you're 50, if you're 40, if you're 30, if you're 20, you can relate to that song. And it has a meaning for most people who actually take the time to listen to it. It could affect you for forever.
You mentioned the Wizard of Oz. Did you hear the story of how...
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever do that? It actually works. I'm telling you.
I mean, that's really trippy.
Yeah, but it is.
I never got into that much of a trip to do that.
It's pretty cool, actually. It works. I mean, you've been hearing about it for decades.
For my 70th birthday, if I'm still here...
You're still here.
I'm going to try that.
You're going to wait that long, huh?
Yeah, I'll wait, because I want to make sure that I've taken in as much information as I can to understand what's going on.
Okay.
To make a decision on whether that was coincidental or other.
It has to be, but it's amazing when you do it.
You've done it then.
Yes, I didn't do the entire album, but I did enough of it to be like, wow, this is some freaky shit.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on number 7 because you already picked it too. Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I just put all parts together from Wish You Were Here. That's just such a great long piece of music. And the thing is, you can kind of lump them together because they're both really so similar, and they're just, or well, not both because it's all these parts, but it's one long extended piece just spread out over different sections of the album.
And it has a beginning, an introduction, a middle, and an end. And it's a novel. These guys were writing novels disguised as albums. That's one way I kind of rationalize what was going on here.
And they were peaking at this time, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Think, All right, number 6, Mike.
Number 6 for me, Brain Damage. Again, kind of an homage to Syd Barrett, and a real good look into the frailty of the human mind, and how much that affected the members of the band. I thought it was a great kind of a tribute.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I love the
lyrics are awesome.
The lyrics are awesome. The music is great. Again, there's this kind of like ethereal quality about a lot of the tunes on that album. It's just it's magical and it's legendary for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And you can basically take a look at any track on that album and be like, yeah, that's an absolute classic, right? Yep. Absolutely. You mentioned Syd Barrett, so I'm going to go all the way back to their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and they also redid this song on their Ummagumma album, and I think I actually like that version better. Maybe not. Astronomy Domine.
That's a pick from out of the blue.
It's one of their most psychedelic songs. It's a trippy song. It's it's pretty rockin' tune. It's a frightening song. I always dug it. And one of my favorite Canadian heavy metal bands, Voivod, actually did a very cool cover of that, like in the early '90s, I think, because they're big Pink Floyd fans. So, but yeah, it's a really really cool tune, and I like how on the Ummagumma album they went and David Gilmour actually got involved and recorded it, which was pretty cool because he wasn't in the band, obviously, on the first album. That was all Sid Barrett. So, but definitely a cool, trippy tune. I always really dug a lot. So that's my number 6. So, number 5, Mike's up.
So number 5, again, I'm going to go back to the Dark Side of the Moon and Speak to Me, Breathe, and On the Run.
Yeah, they all kind of.
Which is, the whole thing about chasing the sun, how we're caught up, and a lot of the themes I think that drove Roger Waters are all these things about, wasting time and chasing the sun, and we're all rats in a cage on a wheel, and we're going round and round and round, and do we ever stop and smell, the flowers until it's too late, and all those things are intellectual inquiries to the human condition. What a master of getting inside people's heads and people's hearts and making you think about your life and your condition. And that's, he says that's the English way, to brood about what's there and what's lost and what could have been and what might have been and what is, and put that all together.
Right.
Yeah, to me, that's what Breathe, run, rabbit, run. Dig that hole, chase the sun. And
I love that vocal line, too.
And then,
it's awesome.
When the work is done, don't worry, tomorrow you're going to dig another one.
Yep. It's that simple, yeah.
Hey, how poignant is that? And it's just timeless. So, again, the theme, time, money, corporate, human condition, all these themes keep going around and around and around. And Roger Waters, through the decade of the 70s of Pink Floyd, found numerous ways to reinvent those points and present them in a different way, but it's still the same story over and over and over again that he uses. And how brilliant of Richard Wright and David Gilmour and Nick Mason to help him tell those stories in a way that without them we'd just be reading another poem and interpreting it probably differently, because we don't have the sentiment that the music brings to those
two
stories.
Very important elements that they work so well together.
Absolutely.
Without each other. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, so my number 5, I'm going to make my one and only dip into the wall here on this top 10, and it's a classic song. It's one of the greatest. It contains one of the greatest guitar solos of all time, and I just had to put it on here because I still really love the song a lot, and it's always been my favorite song off the wall, and it's one of my favorite guitar solos of all time from a fantastic player. Of course, I'm talking about "Comfortably Numb."
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great tune. It's a great, and one of those tunes that we've all heard a lot, but I just still don't get tired of hearing it. It's quite good. So I had to fit that on here somewhere. So I figure right around the middle works for me. And the guitar solo is legendary. You talk about music that tells a story.
Mm-hmm.
That guitar solo is so lyrical, and I think most people who are fans of the band or a fan of that song can probably hum along to every note and melody in that guitar solo. We all know it. You don't, even if you can't play it, you don't play guitar or anything else, like every little note and melody line and nuance to that solo. It swirls in your head. It's so memorable. I mean, that's what being a great musician is all about, right? I mean, you create melodies that people remember,
mm-hmm.
that they can hum along to. That's what makes a great song, what makes a great musical passage, right? So, Comfortably Numb.
Very nice. That was on my first top 10, and as I was doing more research, I bumped it, but it's an honorable mention for me, and I really enjoyed that song, listening to it today again for the umpteenth time.
It doesn't get old, yeah.
No, they never get old. always have a place in my heart for the Floyd.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, we're at the final four.
So the final four for me, has to be The Great Gig in the Sky. And for the simple reason that being with my background and being an improviser who makes quasi-living improvising, as I'm doing right now, actually. I'm improvising, but I'm not getting paid. There's no paid performances on this show.
No.
So.
Not yet, anyway.
No. But, that being said, Claire, I don't have her last name written down here, but the lady who did the vocalese, improvised vocal solo at the end of The Great Gig at the Sky, the Great Gig in the Sky, she actually later on sued the Floyd and got songwriting credits for her vocal improvisation.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
probably deserved it though. Man, that's brilliant.
It was a one-take thing, as I understand from things I've read. And they told her, just go in there and sing like you're dying, and this is your last song.
That's a good way to put it.
Just what are you going to vocalize the last few seconds you have left, And she reacted, and to me that's spontaneity. It's a once in a lifetime recording. It happened the first take, which is usually, if anybody out there is listening who have recorded before, like many of you probably have, most of your best ideas happen in the first take. That's pretty much how it happens.
You can do 10 or 20 takes, right? You're never going to duplicate that.
Yeah, and you're always going to come back to a few of the ideas that you had in the first take, and usually, because it comes from the heart. It's the first take is usually the one where you're the freest to put out your statement. But anyway, she got songwriting credit for her lyric in that tune, which I think is well deserved. And to me, as a jazz guy, I love the improv she did at the end of that. You get lost in that beautiful solo she did.
Yeah, it
vocalized.
definitely is. I dig it. My number 4, Mike has already mentioned as well. Echoes for me from the Metal album. I'll just reiterate, the first time I ever heard that song, it creeped the shit out of me. In a good way. And I still listen to that and all the little kind of weird sound effects going on and everything. It's just such a great, great tune. That could have only come from that era, right? It's so early 70s, just glorious stuff. So that's my number 4. The final 3.
All right. Coming down to the wire. And we have the Win, Place, and Show.
Yep.
Talking about themes. Again, after their big success of Dark Side of the Moon, things really exploded for the band, and they went from a tour bus band to a jet propelled tour band going around country to country via jet. Talking about that experience, I thought, what a great rockin' tune, and something that was apart from everything else they had just done to get them to the point of fame. Have a Cigar. What a great slap in the face to the music industry that just had made it possible for them to be rock superstars. But it's kind of a reflection of Roger Waters saying, hey, now we're a part of the corporate machine, which again, Welcome to the Machine was part of that album. Have a Cigar, to me, is just kind of like, okay, boys, now we'll tell you what to do.
Yep.
And you're here. We got you here. Sit back. We're going to tell you how to take it from here.
That's right.
And they didn't to the upside. Thank you, Pink Floyd, for staying true to yourselves and who you were. But what a great song
with guest vocal by Roy Harper.
Roy Harper.
If memory serves me correctly, I don't think that the record label really wanted them to have Roy Harper on that tune, but they insisted. Because he was like this kind of little-known folk guy or whatever, but I know the guys in the band were really into him, and I think they became good friends with him. But it's funny because if you didn't actually know that was Roy Harper, the vocals sound very much like Waters on that
Yes.
tune. His vocal style is very similar. But yeah, that's a great kind of.
Do you think he regretted not singing that afterwards?
Who knows?
You
Who
know?
knows? Yeah.
Because it was such a success and
Yeah.
a big hit. It was a single off that album.
Yeah.
One of them. Which we'll
Great
get to
tune.
that.
Really good guitar riffs from Gilmore on that
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
I really dig that song a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so here we come to the moment of truth or moments of truth. So some of you are probably wondering, Jesus, that Pardo guy hasn't mentioned anything from Animals yet, and I know how much he likes Animals. Well, we've arrived, okay? My number 3 song is from Animals. It's Sheep. You know, we could talk all day long about animals, and you know,
Who doesn't like a good sheep?
Yeah,
Especially if you're from Walden.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
I am. Sorry, Waldenites.
Inside joke. Yeah, we won't get into that. Yeah, that's great. I mean, a lot of things that Mike has been talking about for the last 30 minutes or so about the band and how as they matured as musicians and songwriters, they started putting together all these kind of concept pieces and concept storytelling. And again, you got the Animals album is all full of titles about specific animals and stuff like that, but the nuts and bolts of the lyrics is all about just kind of like the human condition and all the stuff, society and all that. It's just farmers.
On the 8th day, God created farmers.
Farmers, yes.
Farmers like sheep.
That's right, exactly.
What can I tell you?
So
And pigs and
and
cows
pigs and cows and dogs and all that sort of stuff. But
animals.
animals in general, yep. I love everything on the Animals album. To me, it's really hard to kind of pull out individual tracks on there because they just all flow into each other. But for the purposes of this, I just had to do it. So I put Sheep in as number 3. But one of the things I really love about the Animals album is it's a really moody. It's moody, but it's not that moody. But for me, it's got the greatest instrumentation on the album, and there's all these great kind of passages that you could kind of pull out whatever, but they work so well together as the band goes from kind of like space rock to psychedelia to folk to rock, and there's just all this great stuff on there. And there's some seriously ominous, like really chilling segments on that album that I just love. And again, if you're someone who was growing up in the 70s, and let's just say you partook in psychedelics and all that kind of stuff, that's like the perfect soundtrack to your little kind of trip, shall we say. And it's just such a great album. And I love the Sheep tune. And again, you got all the little sound effects they put in there and all this kind of stuff. Just really, really brilliant stuff. So Sheep, my number 3. What do you got for number 2? The final 2.
Okay. Number 2 for me, Us and Them. What I failed to mention again about Roger Waters through this whole discussion about him bringing up common themes all the time and things that are poignant for most of us, like time and money and space and governmental influence and this and that. Common theme that he brings up, and especially later in his life, he brings up the theme of war and the pointlessness of war. It's laced throughout the lyrics on A Dark Side of the Moon. With conflict and that, and Us and Them is one of those tunes that really reflects about the sentiment of how useless it is to fight over the haves and the have-nots, and basically that's what drives most of human conflict, both politically and socially, and that's his main I think his main message throughout many of his. Much of his career is he,
especially like the later '70s stuff and all throughout the '80s.
Yeah, and in fact, his father died fighting World War II, and left him at a young age, and so of course that's going to be indelibly etched in his mind, as it should be. And you want to know more about Roger Waters? Think about the war-laced themes. In his the human conflict, I should say, human themes about human conflict laced throughout his lyrics, throughout his career, and you can find numerous examples of that. I mean, you could probably fill up a whole notebook of lyrical passages that reference human conflict, and his not understanding why this is necessary. All right, so that's why Us and Them is all about that. There's another quote that I had from him, but maybe I'll find it towards the end. But
great hook in that tune, even though it's kind of, again, it's got that kind of like floating quality as a lot of their tunes from that era had. It's a good one. All right, my number 2, also from Animals. No surprise there. We're going to go with Pigs, 3 different ones.
Yeah.
Instead of, I opted not to include the intro Pigs and the outro because they're like a minute long each, but the main Pigs tune is great. Great as a whole album.
Awesome.
So that's my number 2.
My favorite was Dogs. I like dogs.
I love dogs too.
That's all
I got 3 of them at home.
I don't have much experience with pigs, but I like dogs.
Dogs are cool.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
All right.
The final
here we
moment,
go.
number 1.
Of course, for me, being away in college, back in 1978, and having this as kind of my Miss You song.
Sweetheart was back home.
Sweetheart was back home, and Wish You Were Here. To me, just a great tune. Can be interpreted so many different ways, and whether it's about somebody who has lost their mind or lost their mom, or both, or whatever. It doesn't
However
really, or their sweetheart. It doesn't. However you want to interpret it, it means something to so much to so many different people who've heard it in that era, in that time period. Great tune for me from the Floyd, and it has all those things, with the radio in the beginning and the acoustic guitar and how it morphs into different. It's a storybook. It's more than just a pop tune. It's Pink Floyd's version to me of a pop tune, which is epic.
Yeah, one of the greatest sitting around with a bunch of friends or family around a campfire sing-along tunes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe someone's got an acoustic guitar, even if everybody knows the words to it, right? The old sing-along. It's kind of like one of those great feel-good folky rock tunes, right? By a band that was not known for being a folky rock band, right? Yeah, that's a great tune. It didn't make my top 10, but it sits just outside mine because I always love Wish You Were Here. It's just a great tune. All right, so my number 1, I'm doing the Animals trifecta for my top 3. Dogs is my favorite Pink Floyd song.
Yeah, that was my favorite off of Animals.
Yeah, I love it. Just love it. It's such a great. For me, it's hard to separate those 3 tunes because they're each so epic, and they're in a way they're kind of similar but not. But there's like parts of Dogs that literally, no matter how often I listen to it, just sends chills up and down my spine. It's that cool for me. It's just that for me, that's the ultimate Pink Floyd album. That does everything that I love about Pink Floyd, more so than any of their other albums. And I love Dark Side. I love Wish You Were Here. I like a lot of their albums, but Animals for me is like above and beyond the best Pink Floyd. So, and Dogs is my favorite track. So there you have it.
Nice.
All right, you got some honorable mentions for us?
Sure. Neither one of us mentioned the most popular tune by radio standards, which was "Money."
Yeah.
Again,
great tune.
A great sax solo thing. I'll give you a little insight, a story that not too many people know about. So, the year is 1978. I just got accepted to the University of Miami, and I'm in the music program. And I'm a sax player, so I go down, and I see these posted on a board there. I was just down there a couple of days, and I see auditions for the jazz program. And I said, well, yeah, I don't know anything about jazz. At the time, I hadn't even really, heard of much jazz except what my grandfather exposed me to, a little Coleman Hawkins or whatever. So I took my sax and I stood in line for the audition. Now, okay, I'm just out of high school. And it comes to my time, I get in the room, and the guy goes, he puts his glass down and he goes, what have you prepared? And I'm like, prepared? What do you mean?
Surprise.
He goes, well, you should have prepared a solo if you want to audition for us. What do you know? And I said, I know this song. So I proceeded to play the solo to Money that I had memorized. And I got about halfway through, and he goes, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll let you know.
That went well.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks a lot, great,
Happy-go-lucky 18-year-old, like,
yeah.
yes.
No, I was 17.
17,
I was 17
younger,
at the time, and,
right.
and I was accepted into the theory program by one of these really top music theory composers, Dr. Dennis Cam. I'll never forget his name. But anyway, that was 1978, and I learned an important lesson that you don't go away to music school only knowing the solos from your favorite Pink Floyd albums.
Yeah, I guess not the best idea.
But anyway, that was my story. So that's my mention of Money.
It's a great tune, though.
Otherwise, I wouldn't mention it, but
I like Money. That's a good tune.
It was a great tune.
Yeah, it's a good radio tune. It's and again, there's besides the sax solo, you got some really cool kind of like trippy guitar work from Gilmour on that.
And it's the songs in 7, which was unheard of for a pop rock single, as it turned out to be in that time. No tune that was in 7/4 was on the radio. So again, they played with the time.
Yep.
Time is a very important concept to this band, the way
right.
they develop things. Later on, I just want to make honorable mention of the album that you don't like.
That was coming.
Yeah, okay. So they don't have Rick Wright anymore. They fired him from the band. And from the final cut, The Gunner's Dream, to me, beautiful lyrics. They take a really nice flowing lyric line and they transform that into a saxophone solo, beautifully picked up by a different guy that they had there, not Dick Parry at that time.
That's a good tune.
British
that
guy.
made my honorable mentions.
Yeah,
one of the 2 tracks I actually like.
A really progressive chord progression there, talking about PTSD and dreams and things that are associated with war and another timeless kind of a tune. And then from the same album, for its keyboard work, which was not Rick Wright, Paranoid Eyes. And one of the lines that stood out in me were the lyrics there, again about the despair of the human condition. Roger Waters says, "The pie in the sky turned out to be miles too high."
Can't reach it.
Can't reach the pie in the sky.
Nope.
Yeah. So it's about hiding your thoughts behind your own eyes, and other people look at those eyes and see different things, but only you know
what's behind the eyes.
What's behind those eyes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
And probably the last one I want to talk about, the Fletcher Memorial Home, which is a great guitar piece for Gilmour on that album. And again, another nice sax solo at the end of that tune. There's a line that says, well, no, that's a different tune. Hold on. I went past myself here. The last tune on that I like to mention, Two Suns in the Sunset.
Okay.
And here's the line at the end that epitomizes to me what Waters is all about. Ashes and diamonds, foe and friend, we were all equal in the end.
Which is true, right?
So there you go. That's what he's all about. This is what he's, with us and them, he's trying to say this, portray the same message. And I like the way that throughout a body of this guy's work and the band's work, you kind of get a sense of who they were, and they're not changing their tune, so to speak, no pun intended, because they came into a lot of money and they got very rich and very famous. They still had a message, and they stayed true to that message throughout.
They didn't do the old sellout thing, which we hear too often now. They definitely never did that.
Right. To me, that's what made them a favorite of mine, why I was so happy for you to ask me to share my thoughts on the Floyd. By the way, which one's Pink?
We'll never know. We'll never know. Which one's Pink? Which guy's named Jethro? Who's Lead? You know, it's like, by the way, which one's Pink?
Yeah.
All right, I jotted down a bunch of, I'm just going to try and name some of the honorable mentions that you didn't already talk about. So from Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Interstellar Overdrive. Again, that's from their heavily psychedelic era. It's a very cool tune. What else? Careful with That Axe, Eugene, from Umaguma. That's a pretty cool tune.
Just the thought of that gives me the...
I know, right?
Willies.
And how about the title track, Epic Sweet, Atom Heart Mother, from the Atom Heart Mother album? Again, this is all their really early stuff I dig. I have everything else listed from Dark Side of the Moon because I really dig that album a lot. Have a Cigar, Wish You Were Here, I got. From the Wall, I want to talk about a couple of Wall tunes. In the Flesh, very cool tune. And, I want to make mention of Bob Ezrin's production on The Wall. I think he was able to, I talked earlier about how David Gilmour's guitar work and the way his guitar was produced on that album is just pure genius. Even though The Wall is not one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums, I think that he sounded fantastic on the album. Young Lust, great tune. Mother is another one of those kind of really weird, kind of spooky, depressing Roger Waters tunes, but I always like that one. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 you mentioned. Goodbye Blue Sky, it's a cool tune. Hey You.
Yeah, Hey You, of course. Yeah.
I mean, that's
so
great.
Let me ask you about the wall, the concept of the wall. Like, how we build this wall. And again, that's the introspective mind games that he's playing. Did you see them at all in concert, the Floyd?
Way after, like 91 or 92.
All right, so you didn't actually see them when they were playing behind the wall?
No.
What do you think about that concept of, like, hiding from your audience and taking down parts of the wall
throughout the concert?
It's
genius,
stuff.
Right? Yeah, that's a spectacle. If you got to see that tour, that's pretty damn special.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like that, though. As an audience member, I mean, you're hiding... I mean, it's a concept, right? It's a concept. But what if you're not into that concept and you just
want to hear the music?
You want to hear the music and you want to watch them
you
perform.
Can't see them.
You can't see them. They're behind the wall. So, in other words, why don't I just close my eyes and listen to it on my headphones at home instead of paying $75, $80 at that time probably to watch them take down pieces of the wall?
In fact, they had to recreate that every night, right?
Yeah, I mean, is that... I mean, it's a little strange. It's a little...
Pink Floyd were a little strange, right?
I don't know. I guess.
What else? Run Like Hell from The Wall. I dig a lot. That almost made my top 10. I mentioned The Gunner's Dream from Final Cut. I like Southampton Dock, too. That's got a good little Gilmour guitar solo. I want to give a little love to Momentary Lapse of Reason, which is the first album they did after Roger left the band. So The Dogs of War is a great tune. Learning to Fly is a very cool tune. On the Turning Away was the kind of the hit single on the album. That's really cool. Terminal Frost, great instrumental. They did some really cool instrumentals after Roger left the band because he was more into, for him it was all about the lyrics and singing, right? Mm-hmm. But Gilmour loved doing instrumentals. One Slip from the Division Bell, Cluster 1, What Do You Want From Me, Poles Apart, and Marooned. And then from the last album they did, which probably will be the final Pink Floyd album, Endless River, Louder Than Words, and Skin. So I just want to kind of give some love to those. So that's it, guys. This was kind of fun because we did a lot more than just rattle off 10 tunes, right? We really kind of talked about the essence of what made Pink Floyd so great. This was almost kind of like a history of Pink Floyd show, right? It wasn't originally intended that way, but it was kind of, it's...
I mean, it's kind of interesting when you do the research. I'm always looking for the meaning behind the music.
Right. What made them tick, right?
Yeah, and why do people respond favorably to certain things, and what makes music timeless? What makes it unique? What makes it individual? why does music affect so many people over so many different platforms?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question for our audience here. So, most of the time when we do these top 10 song shows, I always ask everybody, well, list your favorite top 10 and just let everybody know. It's like, these are our favorites, okay? We get people who are like, oh, I can't believe you didn't include such and such a song in your top 10. Well, we like what we like. You like what you like. There's no right or wrong here. But I think more importantly, we would like to know, what do you love? What is it about Pink Floyd that you love so much? Because they're a beloved band by many, especially my audience, okay? People who turn to this channel love Pink Floyd. So I'd love to know from everybody, and if you want to let us know what your favorite songs are, fine. But what is it about Pink Floyd that means so much to you? Why do they mean so much to you? What are the Pink Floyd qualities? The lyrics, the music, one of the members versus another member, whatever. It'd be interesting to see why people love this band so much.
Because there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Nope. Nope. There isn't.
Don't say it for the third time.
No.
Because then we're going to find ourselves in Kansas.
All right. We don't want to go there.
Not tonight.
I'd rather be here in Walden or Newburgh, New York, right? So anyway, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. So leave your comments. Curious to hear what your thoughts are on Pink Floyd. And while you're doing that, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube almost every damn day. Mike Antonelli, tell us a little bit where they can find you.
Thanks for tuning in. Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm at www.thebrewery. Just orangecountyhops.com.
Yep, Orange County
without
Hops.
the brewery. www.orangecountyhops.com.
He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his own beers on tap. Got one of the Roscoe Beer Company's beers on tap. We got some local bourbons here, some local wines. I've been drinking a Whitey Wheat Ale today, so a lot of good stuff here. Live jazz on the weekends. It's a great place to hang out. So come by Route 52 in Walden, New York. And Mike will be back again. We've been talking for a couple of months about doing some sort of Miles Davis show. So that's somewhere down the road, right?
Nice.
So we'll do that. So we'll see you again real soon. For Mike Antonelli, I'm Pete Pardo. Take care, everybody.